I want to open up, and I know everyone sees each other's names, but there's a lot of interesting backgrounds to everyone here on the panel. So, LaChell, Diya, Nick, I would love to you guys quickly introduce yourselves, give a little bit about what you're doing in the wellness space, but specifically, more importantly, what you're doing in your roles. And I would love to hear just a little more why you're passionate about wellness, because people don't always realize why you get into the space in the first place. So maybe we'll start. Nick?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So I own a delicious and healthy cookie brand called Moonlight. We make cookies that we pride ourselves on taste with good for you benefits, basically. So our cookies are made with nuts and fruit. They have prebiotics, protein, and they're sweetened with apples. And that's it. Why I got into this, growing up I had an eating disorder and I struggled with nutrition, and through years of processing that and figuring out nutrition in my own life, I realized cookies specifically haven't really been reinvigorated, or no one's really made until us made a cookie that is taste first and health benefits sort of as that secondary strength component. So just want to make it easy for people to eat healthily, but really love what they're eating and enjoy it. So.
The cookies are delicious.
Thank you.
Approved. Hi everybody, my name is LaChell. I'm the Director of Health and Wellness at American Dairy Association Northeast. A little bit about my background. I started in healthcare, worked for Rodale. I know somebody else said that they're worked with Rodale too. Yeah, there you go. And then worked in retail as a retail dietitian, and then found my way over to dairy. And at dairy, kind of two pillars of what we do, and I should say that it is a nonprofit organization that we work for on behalf of dairy farmers. That's how we are funded. So we do work in line with the folks that did Got Milk, but we are a little bit more of a promotion board. So I work with Diya, my partner here, and two sides of what I do is work with key stakeholders, so other medical doctors, other dietitians, nurses, state departments, and then I get to come over to our digital team and communications side and get to do some work with our platform Savers. So it's great to be here.
Hi everyone. Hi, I'm Diya. I oversee the digital and content marketing at American Dairy Association, and also our food media branch Saver, which we'll talk a little bit about and what that is. Basically, like Michelle said, I actually didn't work in the agriculture or food space before. I came from the media entertainment industry. Before that, I worked in finance at Merrill Lynch for many years. Hated it, just did it because I was in business school. So I found my way into the world of marketing, and I've been in the marketing space for 10 years now.
I hear you with the finance space. I started Bank of America and ran away from that as soon as I could. Not that finance is bad, because we do have a lot of fintech partners as well. One thing that was interesting just in our conversation from yesterday is you think about an association nonprofit and reaching a whole audience for a broad category. You're not necessarily product specific, but you're across all of dairy. Then you think about Only, right? Clearly, you're really very product and brand specific. But moving to you, Diya and LaChell, I want to understand, how do you think about reaching that audience more broadly, speaking about dairy, one from maybe the American Dairy Association perspective, and love to maybe dig into Saver a little bit, because you kind of have this unique, I would say almost bifurcated approach of how to speak to customers and engage them in different ways. So I'd love to hear more about that, and how are you bringing wellness to those different conversations?
Yeah, so with American Dairy, we are brand agnostic. So at the end of the day, we represent all dairy, all brands, all dairy brands. So when I started a couple of years ago, American Dairy, the website, had everything. So it not only had information about dairy farming and sustainability and cow care, but it also had recipes. So if consumers were online looking for a specific recipe, and it happened to bring them to American Dairy simply because the SEO was fantastic, the chances of that consumer staying on American Dairy were extremely slim, if it's a consumer specifically looking for recipes. So what we did a couple of years ago is we launched Saver Recipes. So Saver has its own website, its own social media presence, and it is all things food and delicious recipes. We don't publicly affiliate it with American Dairy, so the website won't say Saver brought to you by American Dairy, because at the end of the day, if a consumer sees that, they'll automatically go, well, of course this has cottage cheese in it, or of course this has yogurt in it. It's American Dairy. But if they see that, oh, this is a delicious recipe, it looks healthy, that's kind of where we launched Savor. And then closely with LaChell, which she can kind of touch into, last year we really planned it, and this year we launched our Wholesome Eats section. And we knew that there was a space where consumers are looking for healthy recipes too. So there's recipes that you want to indulge in, and then there's recipes that you want to make day to day, whether they are protein shakes or smoothies or overnight oats or things like that. And then we built our Wholesome Eats section, which LaChell can dive into a little more.
Yeah, sure. I remember those early days, and I feel like before Savor, we were a little bit of a mess with our recipes. So coming into it, we really had to kind of take a deep dive into what we had on our website and really kind of formulate those recipes to make sure that they were easy to make and really trying to have a broad appeal to that millennial parent, that older Gen Z parent. And so a year or so ago, my colleague and I, we said we really need that like wholesome eats. We really need a healthier section on this website. But as we've probably been discussing a lot today, healthy just means so many things to so many people. And as a dietitian, I can always nerd out on the nutrients, but really and truly, when consumers want to make delicious recipes, they want to find the recipe. You know, they really believe in taste. And they want something to taste good. So we really created this section, and we always have to base everything we do on USDA dietary guidelines. So we wanted to create a section that had healthy recipes that were dairy focused, but we wanted to integrate that into how do we do more plant-forward recipes with dairy, because that's trending. How are we making recipes that are more culturally inclusive, that really have that health angle to it? So we created this section. We do have nutrition analysis on the page for those that want to do a more deeper dive, and we also have some health claims that we kind of contracted out some help for. But at the end of the day, we really wanted those recipes to be delicious. They wanted to be simple and something that are, you know, those that are more health conscious could consume.
I love it. One of the things when you think about themes of the day, authenticity, when you think after dairy, right, there's a little bit of indulgence and decadence there. There's also health, but you're not shying away from that. You're not shying away from the recipe, which I always thought was brilliant, and also that bifurcation to be comfortable, allowing you to have two separate brands within this whole interaction, I think is also a bold move. So it shows a lot of innovation can still happen, and sometimes people would say maybe a tried and true, maybe not innovative category. So kudos to you both. So shifting to you, Nick, because is clearly an innovation, and it is delicious. I tried it too many earlier, but they were all very, very good. And I'll probably be shifting my behaviors in terms of cookie eating. If I eat another cookie, I'll probably go there. But I want to hear, I want to hear in terms of some of the insights you had for wellness, right? To go into the cookie space, which almost by its nature says this is not wellness, right? We're not going to succeed here. What were those initial insights along your journey of launching Mli? And then you've had a lot of interesting kind of feedback or data points. You were speaking a lot about retail and trade as a key area you look to, not necessarily many of their spaces and digital and the like, but I want to hear a little more about those insights that you're gaining and how you're getting those.
So we're mainly a wholesale-driven company for right now. We have allocated most of our resources to make sure that we're just focusing on one channel for the time being. We're also on Amazon too, and we'll eventually move back to that omni-channel approach because, like someone said before, it's an ecosystem. Cookies are really an indulgent category, and for so many different CPG and food products that people buy products because they taste good. The health component is important for some active consumers or health-conscious consumers, but I think I'm answering your question by talking about the process and what we learned in the field, surveying customers and iterating the product 3 times. We're now going on version 4 of the product. Is that specifically looking at the cookie category, I'm sure you know Oreos and Chips Ahoy, and then there are all these better for you brands that sell gluten-free, they sell grain-free, and they're still cutting themselves off from a large portion of the market. And that's what we learned in demo, learning with consumers that people just, with cookies, they just want a delicious cookie. So we've changed the product and the packaging again and again because it's our main story, right? So our first iteration had functional, prebiotic, supports digestive health, which is all amazing. But over time, we've gravitated towards making it more indulgent and making those icons sort of a secondary component for those active consumers or health conscious consumers that will look for it anyway. And for us, that's being able to tap into a larger market and not just sell healthy cookies, and to really bridge the gap between indulgence and health, because consumers that shop in a Walmart or a Target, these conventional stores, they're still looking for healthy products, but they buy it for taste, and then the health component is secondary.
One thing I was impressed, and maybe because I'm a nerd in this space, marketing, to actually label indulgence, right? So oftentimes on your cookies, right? So it's interesting when you look at them, you always see these nutritional labels, right? It's going to be only about protein or only about NGO, but the fact that you actually lean into indulgence also in that space, I think is a kind of unique move, especially from where you're going. So I'm going to date myself a little bit because I'm going to talk about eating shredded wheat growing up, because I never had 3 wishes and the like, but I feel like in the past, within the wellness space, it's oftentimes you make a sacrifice, a trade-off. I'm going to go for something that's healthier, has the right nutrients, but it tastes like cardboard. I'm just going to swallow it fast, guzzle some water afterwards, versus this is indulgent, this is decadent, and it feels like you're constantly making that choice. And that was my growing up experience. It's like, you must eat healthy, have the shredded wheat, but then I would beg and plead, kind of the frosted mini wheats, kind of the Fruit Loops, right? Because that's really what I wanted. And there was always this kind of forced choice. In your experience through the American Dairy Association with Emily, have you feel like are there still parts of segments of your audiences you feel have that, or maybe a little bit to what you were just saying at the end there, Nick? Do you feel like that is now kind of blended and it allows you to broaden in? What's that kind of leap that you take from going from I'm starting with something healthy, but then I'm also willing to have something that meets that other need of indulgence or good taste? So I'd love to maybe start off here, and then we'll move over to Nick.
So I think how we tap into it, it's almost like surround sound. There are consumers that are looking for one thing first. Some people are looking for the indulgence first. Some people, like Nick mentioned, the health part is secondary. But then for some people, that's first. So for us, how we really tap into that market is with our influencer marketing and the strategies with influencer marketing that we do. So we have a lot of different types of influencer marketing we do. Our influencer marketing strategy for American Dairy is very different than our influencer marketing strategy for Savor recipes. For Savor, our
Talk more about
influencer-
that when you have a chance.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. So for Savor, for Wholesome Eats, we partner with a lot of registered dietitian content creators. So these are content creators that are on their social media really making recipe-first content, but with being health conscious in mind. So all of our Wholesome Eats recipes that we have, we've done those types of partnerships. With the other recipes on Savor, we work with lots of other types of content creators. So they could be professional bakers, just culinary creators in general, more chefs, and we've really saturated ourselves in that, right? But also diversifying the content creators we're working with. So whether it be their age, whether it be their backgrounds, because based on that, their audience sets are different. And one of the main things for us with Savor was not just being health conscious in one path, but doing it in various paths, knowing that there's different types of cuisines and tapping into the different cuisines and just really making sure that we're saturated within our market. And then for American Dairy, with our influencer marketing, we're really tapping more into this year, really focusing on our sports marketing efforts, and then also starting our NIL marketing efforts, which we're kind of in those preliminary stages with.
And I'd say, too, along the influencer track, Diya really taps into our team because we do have key spokespeople that we work with, and then we do have those content creators that are dietitians. And we really want to equip our both audiences with the right health messages. And to your point, I can think of like the 90s was the low fat, no fat craze. Then we went to like carb, no carbs, high fiber, gluten free. Like we've just gone through so many different trends. And then, COVID happened, and what we've been talking about today with a lot of brands here is just how we had to kind of reshift. And as a dietitian, not just talk about nutrients, and that was kind of a learning that we had to do and give our influencers, that it's more about wellness priorities that we really want to tap into. So, this Gen Z consumer audience, they want to know, how does the foods that they're eating, how does it make them feel? So we got to tie in not only physical health, but also emotional health, mental well-being. So we really kind of really streamlined into some priorities where we're talking about, how does dairy, make you feel at calm? How does it bring back the nostalgia that we had when you were, a child? Talking about, how is dairy giving you energy, or how do you feel energized through it? Talking about, really, people are often looking at dairy saying, hey, is this going to make my stomach hurt? So we have to talk about digestion in a different way. So different wellness priorities kind of took key when we provided messaging to our influencers, so that when they're amplifying these recipes or creating the content, that they're really keeping those messages in mind. And same thing with what we're doing with Meat Milk and using different sports dietitians. We had a great foundation of content from our NFL partners and our NFL sports dietitians on our refuel messaging, but really just kind of saying, let's broaden our audience, and not just like the athlete, but let's broaden it to those that are maybe doing yoga or just trying to walk more. Let's work with students. So that's kind of just a change and a shift of what we've seen at American Dairy.
LaChell, one other question. You talked a lot,
Sure.
which I was interested in understanding more, and I think you were hitting on there.
Sure.
Your wellness territories, right? So when you talk about those, and I'm always impressed with your background as a dietitian, walk us through a little more of those wellness territories. Maybe they were a little bit what you were alluding to more, but maybe how you change your messaging based on those.
Oh, sure, yeah. So, like I said, out of 2020, our headquarters, we did a lot of research on what is resonating with consumers, and so we really identified that this, again, Gen Z demographic, they want ways of how to feel calm. It's been a stressful environment, so how are we going to kind of balance our mental and emotional health through eating good tasting food? So we wanted to, that's one of our key messages. Another message is just like, how do you stay energized throughout the day, right? So people are in hybrid environments through work, young adults, like how do you keep the momentum going? So we really kind of, worked our messaging through there. And then also, like, digestive health is a big one. We can talk probiotics all day through yogurt and Greek yogurt, but people just want to know, is what I'm consuming gonna, help aid in my digestion, or how am I gonna feel after I consume dairy? So we really had to really kind of focus on our lactose-free products and offerings. So we're really able to hit those key messages that way. And it's, we've seen that taking that approach has been a really great way to expand our consumer base and really reach more. So that's kind of what we've shifted to on the wellness priorities.
Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Nick, so on your journey, you talk about the iterations, right? You're on the third now, you're on the fourth, which I'm going to get to later because I want to get a sneak peek, or maybe hopefully you're willing to share. But in that journey, learning from your consumers, learning from your trade relationships, would love to hear, like, did you start off a little more of the nutrient badging focus, and like, was there that shipe moment that you said, hey, I need to change this?
Totally.
What was that for you? Walk us through that journey a little bit.
Yeah. So, I created the products because I wanted something that was actually good for me and tasted good. And I thought that was, being a first-time entrepreneur, I thought it was important for me to share how important nutrition is with the world. So the original packaging, it just totally amplified health and wellness, and it just didn't get to the main points driving awareness that this is just a cookie brand. So I've realized over the past 2 or 3 years that consumers they're very, very simple creatures. They buy things because they want it, they're habitual, they don't want to do anything different. So in the beginning stages of selling cookies, our digital marketing, we stopped advertising we started right at the end of the pandemic, so we were doing some digital advertising, and we were selling digestive health, functional benefits, like protein, gluten-free. All of them did hit, they converted, but at the end of the day, I realized that that is not what is going to drive the consumers to come back again and again. And if you don't hate that it's just what they know, it's a good product, it tastes good, and it's good for you. And we've also switched away from the healthy cookies, so we don't say healthy cookies anymore. Just speaking about habits and consumers' expectations or what they think about healthy foods, there still is some stigma around, okay, if it's healthy, it's going to taste like dirt. Like, it's going to taste really bad. And so we don't say healthy anymore when we're speaking. We're mainly concentrated in New York and then the East Coast. We have done hundreds of demos with consumers, and that's how we analyze what works and what doesn't. But we realized healthy, gluten-free, all of those things just shut people down. So we let people try the product. We just need to get it in their mouths. And then also, we have iterated on the product. So it tasted really good the first time, but we just keep making it better. And honestly, we're moving towards the more indulgent route at this point, because that's how we're going to really own the market and capture the consumers in the better for you, which doesn't really mean anything anymore, and just consumers that want to buy, a classic. So we're going it's so, I've started to realize it's so easy. We're going like the retro but modern route, because people want old but new. Like that, the fashion, old but new. And I've seen that with Cook 3 Wishes and Magic Spoon and Olipop, which is like a functional soda. It's just retro, we're the new classic, and we're good for you. And great. People that want good for you, great, and then we'll at least win over some of those consumers that eat Pepperidge Farms or Milanos and all of that. I don't know if did I answer?
I think you answered. You went to a lot of other places that I wasn't even expecting to, which I love, and made some bold statements. I mean, marketers, healthy. Who needs healthy anymore? Don't put that on the packaging, or good for you means nothing, right? Those are bold statements, but I totally hear you. I think also old and the new, right? And freshening up that, and you mentioned nostalgia before.
Yes.
That's an interesting play of like, how do you get to that back of someone's mind for that comfortability, that safe place, but also to experiment. And it's a fine line, because people want to break out of the noise, be innovative, but then also still pull back to some of that comfortability.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say dairy's been a consistent, right? So we want to make sure that we're in your shelf. I know there's alternatives out there, but we just want to make sure that we're still there in the fridge. And we were saying this before, that it's something that we go back to, you've seen big trends with just milk and cereal and bringing that back. So to Nick's point, when we developed Wholesome Eats, we really stayed away from using the word healthy. I think we kind of went to you and said, why don't we do healthful, healthy-ish? And you were nah, let's do these other, terms better. So, I definitely agree. Trying to stay away from just putting that as a first kind of identifier, really going for taste. How can this be, again, culturally appropriate and fit into the cuisines that you're normally eating? And then, here's some, great nutrition messaging on the, as you read our recipe database.
Yeah, and like LaChell was mentioning, just from the content marketing we've done, right, and just we're able to see the stats, just using, for us personally, just from what we did with Savor essentially, using the word healthy, it didn't really help it. Our content actually performed better when we were just speaking to what it was. So if someone was seeing a recipe that is an overnight oats or a no-bake protein bar, they're automatically already knowing and thinking this is most likely a healthier recipe. So us not using the word seemed almost less salesy and less pitchy that way, and just more authentic to what we were trying to do. And in terms of the influencer marketing that we do, one of the big things for us is also not telling them what to do in terms of creating the content, but saying this is what our essential goal is, and to create it and how you think it makes sense for you. So if it's a creator that has kids, involve your kids in the content if you're okay with them being on camera. Or if it's something as simple as, and we did this meat milk campaign where it was simple as having cereal in the morning, just pouring your milk into your cereal. And it was just, an up-and-coming DJ that's this is how I like to start my day. I started with milk and cereal, and just almost going back to the basics. And we started a couple of years ago a campaign that we do every holiday season called Make Milk Moments, and it's a sweepstakes campaign, but the purpose of the campaign is just to hit on the nostalgic memories of milk during the holidays. So whether it's having hot chocolate or making pancakes or making recipes with milk and just really tapping into that emotional side of the consumers, I feel has really benefited us.
It resonates with me. I always look joke around, I'll get to you, Nick, is I made mac and cheese and I've tried alternatives and it just doesn't hit right. It's ugh, what am I eating here? So that, and then other times when I was putting alternatives in my coffee in the morning, it just doesn't hit right. And when the news came out, like whole milk is relatively healthy still to put in your coffee. I felt so much better. I was
We have
like,
research
I'm
around that.
I know.
We can provide.
I read some of it, but I have to read more. Nick, you were going to kind of add on. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I did.
No worries, no worries. By the way, I'm not saying that staying healthy is not.
I tried to make a moment out of it, sorry.
I think like ancient nutrition, they're great. They own their really their core consumer base that's just super loyal to them, and they're strong. So that I'm not saying that staying healthy is a bad thing. I think for us, for a cookie brand, we need to be able to own a larger market that allows us to scale. It allows us to capture more consumers. And specifically, I can two things. One is within the cookie category, there's so many players that claim gluten-free and all these trends that don't really stand the test of time. So we basically over time have looked for what is important to a consumer and what has stood the test of time and has grown year over year for 5 or 10 years. And for us, it's fruit sugar, low in sugar, because consumers want lower sugar products, protein, and fiber. Like, just keep it really simple. Like, those are the call-outs. And I forgot the second thing, so.
All good. Get back to us if you remember it. One other thing that we were mentioning, and you guys kind of got ahead on me, which is great, is winning consumers with taste is a quote I win this. We wouldn't say outright chatting yesterday, and let's not talk about healthy, but how do you win with that consumer taste and how do you broaden the category, right? And I think oftentimes when you maybe start with something like healthy or maybe a niche word, you kind of bucket yourself into an area that doesn't allow others to feel comfortable to taste your product, to expand or make it something they come back to quite frequently. You were mentioning, and I'm a data junkie, clearly you're at a quantitative consumer research company, and I love hearing some of those metrics that you were mentioning before. Whether it is maybe take rates at retailers, Nick, or maybe it's from digital media that you're seeing. What are some of those metrics that inform you in terms of those decisions? Like one of our brand phrases is make guesswork illegal. If you're a business leader, you should never be guessing. We should always do quantitative consumer research to eliminate the guesswork and be comfortable. But within that, like making some of those choices around, let's not go as heavy with healthy, maybe it's more about low sugar. What was the data? What were some of the sources you're using to inform those decisions and be agile?
So when we built the Savor website, we built it with e-commerce capabilities in it. So basically, consumers can go to the website and they can shop. So if there's recipes that you like, you can add to cart. You can print it, you can save it, you can email it, but consumers are doing a lot of grocery shopping online, whether they get it delivered or whether they pick it up. And they can pick their retailer of choice. It picks it based on where they're located. So we're able to see the data of how many people are adding these recipes to carts. Now, obviously, when it gets to the third-party website, we can't know for sure who's checking out. But what we did do is had it built in a way where if, for example, they pick Walmart, it will pre-fill their Walmart shopping cart with the ingredients. So they actually don't need to calculate if there are, say, 4 recipes. They don't need to sit there and do the math of like, well, how many eggs do I need? How much milk do I need? It'll automatically pre-fill the shopping cart. They also cannot swap it for a dairy alternative. So they can swap it for a different brand.
Smart move.
Yeah, so they can swap it for a different brand. If you have one brand of cheese but you prefer another, you can do that. But the recipes that we have are just not, they were made based on those dairy ingredients, right? Like the alternatives just won't even have the recipe come out to be what it is. So we are able to see that data of like, well, how, and then it helps us with the types of recipes that are working. Is it drinks? Is it salads? Is it pastas? And then we're able to see what's just really not working. So that really helps us from a quantitative side. And then from the social media side, impressions are there, but for us personally, it's really the engagement that matters more and how much the consumers are really engaging with the content, how many people are sharing it, whether it's even messaging us directly, and we're just really able to and that is also comes back to the creators that we work with, and just, I think one of the key things for us is working with creators that are truly dairy advocates. So doesn't mean that they're never going to have something else in their fridge, but they genuinely choose dairy in what they're doing in their day-to-day.
If I become a creator, I'll dial you up because I have milk and cheese everywhere in my fridge every single day. So, Nick, do you have anything to add there in terms of the data, maybe retail partnerships or other consumer data that informed you along that journey?
Yeah. So again, we haven't done too much digital marketing yet. We did for about a year that helped us. But we mainly look at velocity and movement over a 6 or 3 to 12 month period of time in different types of retailers. And luckily, we were able to roll out different versions of the packaging over a period of time so that we could see the effect. And with the iterations and the changes that we've made, we've seen increases in spikes in movement in conventional retailers now that we have a little bit more of a streamlined approach and position on shelf and on our packaging. We've also done some, like when we launched into Sprouts nationwide, we did a social nature campaign where we asked consumers, why they were buying the product through purchase intent, and we learned a lot from that, and it sort of just confirmed why we're doing what we're doing and why we have the call-outs that we have. So, we mainly look at success right now in retail. We're just looking at a strong movement for an extended period of time.
Awesome. I have one final question for each of you. It's going to be maybe more of a fun one. It's trying to give some sneak peeks. But when you think about looking at the data, and we'll open up to questions to the audience. We'll start back with you, Nick. You're on your next iteration, right? So you kind of alluded to maybe some sexy line extensions or flavors, new flavors. Can you give us some kind of fun sneak peeks? Because while we love the 2 flavors back there, we want to be buying more, and walk us through what those look like.
Yeah. So we're making the cookies a little bit sweeter. They'll be a little crunchier on the outside and softer in the center. I just want to keep making them better, and I want to make them taste like they're not normal cookies, right? They're made with nuts and fruit. So we just have to keep getting it closer and closer to what it needs to be. And then we've learned over time, so we're going to launch Nutella flavor with a really awesome celebrity.
A lot of head nods out there. A lot of head nods.
It's going to be amazing. We're so excited about that. And that will also expand our service, the service component of the company too. And then we'll launch a birthday cake or an oatmeal raisin. We're still working through that. But more classic, like homey flavors that everyone loves in cookies.
Excellent. And then, ladies, I would ask for you. I think one, and if you don't know the answer on the top of your head, you maybe talk general recipes. I'd love to hear what was the interesting parts for you when you're looking at the data within recipes. Like, what was popping? Maybe it's from different profiles that you weren't expecting to when you launched this. Were there different formats of dairy that you were not expecting to be popping off that? And then, what's maybe the next iteration of Savor, and what are different sections that you're thinking about for the future?
I would say one of the most popular smoothies are always kind of a top performer in terms of how the data is showing us. But all of our recipes, because we try to give it all the love that it deserves, so we do put money behind promoting all of the recipes on there. But we're just really looking forward to expanding the recipe library. I think at this point we have about 700 recipes on Savor. So we're just trying to keep growing that more and more and more. But then also a lot of the partnerships we have in store for Savor. And then from the American Dairy side, I would say just a lot of the activations that we have in the works right now for our sports marketing efforts and like refilling with chocolate milk, and then also the NIL marketing that we'll have coming out like the second half of the year.
Excellent.
And I was going to just piggyback in saying that I feel like Diya and I, since we've been here, we've always been like, where is our diverse content creators? And that's been a little bit of a blind spot for dairy, and we recognize that, so we always want to just make sure that the talent we're using really reflects the recipes that we're creating, so we're going to continue to expand upon that. And then from my side, working with other key stakeholders, and especially with other medical professionals, just trying to integrate some of those Savor recipes so that they can use that for their clients. So just trying to infuse that more into the health professional work that I do.
Love it. So milk and cookies, very exciting, a lot of innovations, and who knows, we'll be speaking so much about nutrition and wellness within this topic. But I want to open it to the audience for a question or two, and then we'll be going to closing remarks. Any questions for the crew?
Who wants to be a Nutella cookie taste tester?
Oh.
Okay.
Talk to Nick afterwards.
Caroline, do a clipboard.